Go for the pulls and the pools. Go for the oohs and the ahs. Go for the bubbles and the bubbly. Go for the story and the stories. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into the Legal Hands to the Face show with Bill Colarulo on this wonderful Monday night in November. And our Philadelphia Eagles still have the best record in the NFL at 8-1. It's good to see everybody. I see some of my Philly Sports Power Hour crew already checking in the chat. We got a great show scheduled for tonight. It's a big week for the Philadelphia Eagles coming off of their bye. They got some tough games coming up, and maybe none tougher than Monday Night Football next week against the Kansas City Chiefs. A rematch of Super Bowl 57 and potentially a preview of Super Bowl 58. So we'll get to that. We will preview Monday Night Football. But first, I want to get into the Eagles at 8-1, and we're going to do a little comparison between where the Eagles stand after 9 games this year and compare them to that great team the Eagles had last year after 9 games. Also take a look around the NFL, especially the NFC after Week 10, and who's fighting for that top seed with the Philadelphia Eagles. We'll look at that. Then we'll preview that Monday night game. We'll get a little into the odds of the end of the season awards and where some of our Eagles players stand in maybe getting those awards. And like we finish every show, I got a little Eagles trivia for you. So, guys, appreciate all you being here. I'm going to take you all the way up to 8 o'clock. Then you could watch Monday Night Football, Buffalo Bills tonight. Get a little inside look of those Bills going up against the Denver Broncos. Should be a win for Buffalo, but you never know. They've been pretty up and down this season. But appreciate all you guys being here. Hit that like button for me. Hit that share button. If you're watching on JAKIB Sports, make sure you're subscribed to JAKIB Sports. But this is also being simulcast on my YouTube channel, Bill Colarulo and Legal Hands to the Face. So make sure you subscribe to that as well. And let's get a little roll call in the chat. Who do we got with us tonight? I see Wine Niners Wine, who was here today at the Philly Sports Power Hour. My man, how are you? Jason A-Team, another one of my Philly Sports Power Hour crew. Xavier Spencer, also here today. Appreciate all you guys and appreciate you smashing that like button for me. And just a reminder, guys, if you don't know, in addition to doing this show every Monday night at 6:30, we also do the Philly Sports Power Hour every day right here on the JAKIB Sports Network, Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. And like I tell you guys, please, if you're not already following at Legal Hands to the Face on Instagram, head on over, give us a follow. We post daily content about the Philadelphia Eagles. So if you're an Eagles junkie like me and you can't get enough Eagles content, at Legal Hands to the Face on Instagram is going to give you a lot of Eagles content. So appreciate all you guys here in the chat. Let's jump right in. And if you're listening on the podcast, like I've said before, we upload the audio from tonight's show to all your favorite podcast platforms. If you're listening on the podcast, after the show, leave us a review on whatever podcast platform you're listening on. It goes a long way to helping us reach some more Eagles fans. That would go a long way. I see Thunderbird checking in. What's going on? Wine Niners Wine asking in the chat, is Legal Hands to the Face in hockey as well? We talk some hockey on the Philly Sports Power Hour. We talk some basketball on the Philly Sports Power Hour. But Legal Hands to the Face is all football all the time. So that's all we're going to talk about tonight, Wine Niners Wine. I'll catch you tomorrow on the Power Hour, and we'll do maybe a little bit of Flyers talk, because you guys know I like my Fly guys. But let's take a look at this Philadelphia Eagles team, because they're sitting here now after Week 10, best record in the NFL, 8-1 after 9 games. But people in this city haven't been as happy about this team as we probably should be. Haven't been as excited as we were last year at this time, sitting there at 8-1. Last year at 8-1, everybody was all fired up. Jalen Hurts, MVP. This team's going to the Super Bowl. Whereas now we're sitting there and we're thinking, oh, they got all these problems. Running game's not working as well. Jalen's not running as much. Defense is giving up too many points. Defense is giving up too many yards. Well, if you follow me on my Instagram page, Legal Hands to the Face, you may have seen some videos that I did last week doing a comparison between last year's team and this year's team. And there's a lot of things that you're going to find surprising, especially on the defensive side of the football, especially on that defensive side of the football. And that's what I want to get into now. I want to take a look at some of these comparisons. So let's just look at the offense. Philadelphia Eagles offense last year, a lot of people would describe it as dominant, that it was an absolutely dominant offense. Well, some of these stats are going to blow your mind when you compare them to this year. Last year, through 9 games, the Philadelphia Eagles offense averaged 30.75 points per game. So far through 9 games this season, 28 points per game. Almost identical. Little over 2 points a game difference. But the craziest thing is the total yards per game. Last year, through 9 games, Philadelphia Eagles averaged 377 yards per game. So far through 9 games this year, 377 yards per game. It's identical. I don't think you could do that even if you tried. The same amount of average yards per game through 9 weeks in both seasons. 377 yards. They're doing it a little bit differently, but not much. Last year, they averaged 234 passing yards per game through the first 9. This year, 247. Last year, a little bit more rushing yards, 143 per game. This year, 130. It is almost identical. If you ask a lot of fans which offense was better, I think a lot of people would tell you last year's offense. But you look at the numbers and you look at the final product. Both teams were 8-1. Both teams putting up 377 a game. They're just doing it a little differently. A little bit more throwing yards this year, a little bit less rushing yards this year. Now, the one major difference, and this is a big problem that the Philadelphia Eagles need to correct as they start to go through this little bit of a tough stretch now. And I was calling it the gauntlet. I'm not even going to call it the gauntlet anymore. Because you know who has the gauntlet, in my opinion? The teams that need to play the Philadelphia Eagles. That is who has the gauntlet. Because this team has proven time and time again over the last 2 years that all they do is win. In the last 29 regular season games, they're 27-2. So I'm no longer going to refer to this 6-game stretch, which is now 5 games, as the gauntlet. Because it's the teams that have to play the Eagles that are facing the gauntlet. And the Philadelphia Eagles can win every single game left on their schedule. Will they? No. I don't think they will. I don't think they're going to go 15-1. But they could. This Eagles team could beat every single team remaining on their schedule. They are that good. And I'm no longer going to sit here and talk about the gauntlet and be scared of teams that the Eagles need to play, because those teams need to be scared of this Philadelphia Eagles team, especially as they continue to get healthy. They were able to regroup after the bye, and they still haven't played their best football, and they're sitting here at 8-1. But the one area that this offense really needs to clean up is turnovers. I see a Philly 007. Thanks for checking in, brother, in the chat. But the one area they need to fix is the turnovers. You look at last year's team through the first 9 games. They only had 7 turnovers. So far this season, this Eagles offense has 13 turnovers through the first 9 weeks. That's been the big difference. You look at all these other numbers. Points per game is close. Yards per game is close. Passing, rushing, everything is almost identical to what it was last year. But they have almost double the amount of turnovers. Could you imagine what these numbers would be if the Eagles offense didn't have those turnovers? How many more yards and points they would probably have? And one of the other areas that needed to improve, and it has improved, is their red zone. Last year, they finished the season as the top 3 red zone offense in the entire NFL. And through 9 games, they're now back up to 13. They were in the 20s. Then they were in the low teens. Now they're 13th in the NFL. The red zone is getting better each week. They were perfect against the Dallas Cowboys last week. We talked about it on last week's show. So this offense is doing a lot of good things. And now, talking about the offense, I want to focus on Jalen Hurts. Because what everyone in this town, everybody on the radio and on these shows loves to talk about, Jalen's not running as much. That's the problem. That's the reason the running game's not working as effectively. Jalen's not running as much. Well, I want to go through Jalen Hurts' stats through the first 9 games last season and compare them to the first 9 games this season, because numbers don't lie. And some of these numbers surprise me too. But you look at Jalen Hurts, and everyone's got an opinion about how different his game is. Not that much different. It's not that much different. And I see a Philly 007 in the chat saying, wants our secondary to have a solid second half. I'm going to get to the defense, and we're going to compare the defense after this. But let's take a look at Jalen Hurts. In 2022, through 9 games, 8-1, as you know, he threw for 2,217 yards. And I see Xavier Spencer saying the passing is elite. The passing has been elite. And Jalen Hurts went from 2,217 through 9 games up to 2,347 through 9 games. He threw 14 touchdown passes last year. He's got 15 through 9 games this year. Pretty similar. Really similar. And what he's doing from the pocket has been impressive. He has improved as a passer from what he did last year. And he was good last year, but he's got even better this season. Now, I talked about turnovers. Well, one area Jalen Hurts needs to improve is on the interceptions. And I know all of them weren't his fault. I know some of them were flukes, but some of them were fluky last year, bouncing off Dallas Goedert. But you look at the numbers, 8 interceptions so far this season. He only had 3 at this point last year. That needs to get fixed. And you know Jalen Hurts wants to fix that area. You know if he spent time doing anything during this bye week, other than trying to get that knee back to 100%, it was figuring out ways to protect that football. Because we talked about it. Turnovers have been a big issue to start this season. But his passing game is better this year. No denying it. Is there anybody in the chat who would disagree that Jalen Hurts has improved his passing game? And he was good last year. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying he even needed to improve his passing. I thought he was excellent last year in the passing game. But he's gotten even better. He's taken it a step up and gotten even better. And I see Feltz 316 checking in. Fly, Eagles, fly. What's going on? The Thunderbird, Jalen Hurts is a guiding light for this team. Actually, I added some words there. I said he was a guiding light. Thunderbird says Jalen Hurts is guiding this team in the right direction, even being a great leader, setting an example for other teammates to be better. And Thunderbird agrees he's gotten better as a passer. Xavier Spencer agrees. Tight window throws. Jalen Hurts is a better passer this year. And one of the things that I said, everyone loves to throw around about Jalen Hurts, is that he's not running as much. And these numbers surprised me too when I looked at them. Because you watch the games, and it does feel like Jalen Hurts is not running as much. But the numbers don't lie. And listen to these numbers. Last year, through the first 9 games, Jalen Hurts ran the ball 94 times. Do you know how many times he's ran the ball this season? 88 times. We're talking about a difference of 6 carries over 9 games. So, yeah, technically, has he ran the ball less? But not a noticeable amount. 6 times through 9 games is not a noticeable amount. Jalen Hurts has ran the ball 88 times this season through 9 games. He ran it 94 last year. He had 354 yards rushing at this point last season. He's got 316 now. He had 7 rushing touchdowns last year. He's got 7 rushing touchdowns this year. The numbers are almost identical. So when everyone throws that around that he's not running as much, it's not true according to the stats. Does it look different? Yes. Are they calling as many RPO plays? They're not. But Jalen is running the ball just as much as he ran the ball last season. And this number I found even crazier is one of the things I've been worried about with Jalen is turnovers. And we talked about interceptions. Well, we're also looking at fumbles. He's fumbled the ball 4 times so far this season. 3 of them were lost. You know how many fumbles he had last year through 9 games? He had 5 fumbles last year. The difference was only 1 of them was lost. So you look at these numbers, Jalen Hurts is pretty much having an almost identical start to the season that he had last year when everyone was saying that Jalen Hurts was the MVP of the league. And he's finally starting to get some recognition again nationally as being the MVP of this league. He's still not favored. He's still not favored, and we'll talk about that later in the show. But what is he now? Just throw out the odds real quick for you. So Jalen Hurts right now is plus 350 to win the MVP, tied with Lamar Jackson. And Patrick Mahomes is the favorite at plus 300. And I didn't think Lamar had a great game yesterday. We could talk about that a little bit when we take a look around the NFL. But Jalen Hurts having a pretty much identical season to last year. And you look at this offense through the first 9 weeks, they're in the top 10 in almost every single category, man. Yards per game, top 3. Points per game, top 2. Passing, top 10. Rushing yards per game, top 10. Third down conversion, best in the league. Red zone's getting close to the top 10. I told you they're at 13th now. But the one area that they've struggled has been turnovers. And you know, if you follow this show or you follow me on the Philly Sports Power Hour, we've also seen a decline in their rushing yards. Their average yards per carry has continued to drop each week. After week 2 and week 3, where the running backs were averaging over 6 yards a carry in those 2 games combined. We've seen it go in week 4, 3.9. Week 5, 3.6. Week 6, 2.35. Week 7, 3.4. Week 8, 2.9. Week 9, 3.17. There's been an issue. But if you look, all of this has started to occur as soon as Cam Jurgens went out in that Washington game. And everything I'm hearing is that Cam Jurgens is trending toward being back at that right guard position. So let's hope that that is, in fact, the problem with this rushing offense, and that this rushing offense starts to pick it back up, because they're going to need it down the stretch. As good as Jalen Hurts has been this year, as good as the passing game is this year, you need a good running game, especially late in the season and in the playoffs. And I see Wine Niners Wine ready for Monday Night Football already next week, asking about who can guard Travis Kelce. We'll get into it. We're going to talk about that in the next segment where we preview our Eagles-Chiefs. But this offense, they're doing what they need to do. They are doing what they need to do. The only thing I'd like to see now, the second half of the season, clean up the turnovers, continue to improve in the red zone, and let's get this rushing offense where it needs to be. Because that's been the one issue that I've seen over the last few weeks, is just that yards per carry is dropping. But anybody who's here in the chat, sticking to the offense for a second. We're going to get to the defense. But sticking to the offense, what are your major concerns on the offensive side of the ball? Because there's a lot of things to be positive about. A lot of things to be positive about with this Philadelphia Eagles offense. And you look at it, statistically, it's almost identical. Now, I did that video on my Instagram page, cut it down to 90 seconds, talking about the comparison between the offenses. And a lot of people pointed out that last year, the reason these numbers are so similar is because last year, the Eagles didn't play in a lot of fourth quarters to begin that season because they were dominating so much. And there's some truth in that. There's some truth in that. But I've told you guys before, we have some revisionist history when we look back to that Eagles team. Yeah, did they dominate some games? Sure, they dominated some games. But they didn't dominate every week. The Lions was a close game at the end. They obviously lost to the Commanders. There were some close games in there. The Colts game was a close game early in the season. So let me see. I asked you guys what concerns you have. Sean Yancey chiming in, and that's the truth, man. Jalen's knee. Because as great as this offense has been and all the hopes that we have that this team can go back to the Super Bowl, if Jalen's not healthy, we're not going anywhere. So I agree with you. But everyone I have spoken to, doctors that I've spoken to, have all said he's going to be fine. He's going to be fine. So let's hope, man. Let's hope. Xavier Spencer's concerned, the running game. And I agree with you. They got to get that right. They have to get their running game right, because we saw it last season. What a luxury it was when your passing game's not working, when things aren't going well, that you can lean on that running game to take over football games, especially late. And we also talked about it last week. This running game hasn't had the ability to turn on their 4-minute offense and shut games down. You saw it against the Cowboys. You saw it against the Commanders. Neither one of those teams should have had a shot to tie those games up. Because when our offense got the football, they should have been able to lean on the running game and go a solid 4-minute drive down the field like they did last year. And they just haven't been able to do it. They have not been able to run the football as effectively the last few weeks. And we threw out all types of hypothesi. Is that the right word? Hypothesi about why. Jalen Hurts wasn't running as much. Brian Johnson wasn't calling enough running plays early. There was all types of things. And I think that did factor in a little bit with the play calling and with Jalen not running as many RPOs. I gave you the numbers. He's running almost the same amount he did last year. But I really think, and I'm really hopeful, that the issue was Cam Jurgens. And we're going to find out on Monday night, hopefully, when he comes back. And I see Wine Niners Wine saying just the play calling or a lack of runs in play calling. And that has been an issue. What else we got from you guys? Philly 007's concerned that Brian Johnson can't get the running game going. The one thing you got to say about this coaching staff is I do think that they do a very good job of self-scouting and figuring out areas that they need to improve. I don't think we have a stubborn coaching staff. That was one of the things. Andy Reid's coming to, well, we're going to his town. But Andy Reid on Monday night, you're going to see him on the other sidelines. And he's a great coach. But one of the biggest gripes we had as a fan base was we thought Andy Reid was so damn stubborn at times in Philadelphia. I think he's gotten better. I think you've seen him evolve, and that's the reason he's had so much success in Kansas City. But his stubbornness would get us so frustrated in this town at times. And I loved Andy. Still do. I think he's a great coach. One of the best to ever do it. But I don't think that this coaching staff is stubborn. And I think during their break, they knew, hey, these are areas we need to work on. So I'm confident they're going to come out and improve that running game. I really am. And I see Feltz 316 saying the tight end position. Great point. Great point. Tight end position is something that we need to be concerned about. Looks like we dodged a bullet that Dallas Goedert isn't going to be out the entire season, but he's going to miss some time. He's going to miss a real tough part of this schedule. And that not only affects your passing game, we talked about it last week, that hurts our running game. Because Dallas Goedert is one of the best run blockers in the NFL from the tight end position. And I love tight end. I played tight end when I played in college. So I got a soft spot for tight ends. And the best thing about the tight end position is they are good enough, athletic enough, fast enough to be able to be in the passing game, but they're also strong enough to be able to be involved in the running game on that line of scrimmage. And when you have a good tight end like Dallas Goedert, who can not only catch the ball, but also can block like an offensive lineman, it's a real mismatch for defenses. So that's a great point. That is a big issue we may have on this team over the next few weeks. Who steps in? Are we finally going to see Albert O, the guy they picked up from the Denver Broncos in the offseason? We're going to see Albert O get some burn this week. I see Philly 007 worried about Swift regressing. I don't know how much of it is on DeAndre Swift and how much of it is on the offensive line. But I think we're going to find a lot out on Monday night if Cam Jurgens is back. And when we start to preview that Kansas City Chiefs game, you'll see this defense for the Chiefs has improved in almost every single area from last season, except for the running game. That's the one area where they actually got worse from last year to this year. Not by much, but you'll see that defense is pretty good. Thunderbird, no more snaps to Gainwell and more to Swift. Hey, look, we were all down on Gainwell. Nice run in the red zone last week for a touchdown. Transistor Zen making a good point in the chat, saying everybody who's blaming Brian Johnson for the run game, do you realize that it's Stoutland who coordinates the run game? And you're right, he is the run game coordinator. But I think, Transistor, what people's gripes have been with Brian Johnson is that he's not calling enough runs. So it's not necessarily the designs of the run. He's not calling enough runs, especially early. And I gave you guys this stat last week before the Dallas game. If you look at how many carries the running backs had, week 4, only 6 in the first half. Week 5, only 7 in the first half. Week 6, only 6 in the first half. Week 8, 3 in the first half. So the gripe with Brian Johnson is that he wasn't allowing his backs to get into any sort of rhythm. But I think he gave them 12 against the Cowboys. So I like that. So we will see what happens. And I see Thunderbird chiming in that Julio Jones would fit nicely at tight end. I've had a few people reach out to me, Thunderbird, about that, saying, hey, could Julio Jones play tight end? I don't see it, guys. I don't see it. I mean, this is a guy who's a wide receiver. It's a different position. Could he line up in the slot? Sure, we've seen him do that. Could he be a good target in the red zone in the passing game? Sure. But can he actually get down in a 3-point stance like Dallas Goedert and Jack Stoll and try to block a defensive end? I'm not seeing that for Julio. Nor do I want him to do that. I don't think that's why they brought him here. So we will see. But, guys, we're going to take our first break. When we come back, I want to switch gears and look at that defense through 9 games and compare it to last year's defense through 9 games. And I think you guys are going to be really surprised because some of these stats blew me away. But smash that like button. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
There is a reason why the Garden Medical Spa, with 4 locations in New Jersey, has arguably the best customer reviews in America for a boutique medical spa. At the Garden Medical Spa, there is no fluff, just results. For the best in Botox, chemical peels, dermal fillers, hydrofacials, laser hair removal, and so much more, please visit thegardenmedspa.com. Book an appointment now in Voorhees, Sewell, Collingswood, or Northfield. Thegardenmedspa.com. No fluff, just results.
If you own a company and you're not producing a podcast, you're missing out. The public consumes messaging when they're ready. Join the professional podcast network of companies and let JAKIB Media Partners put you in the podcast arena. Come to our professional studio or we'll come to your place of business and professionally produce your company podcast. Call JAKIB Media right now at 267-261-3428. 267-261-3428.
My name is Dr. Bruce Grossinger, and I'm the medical director of Philadelphia PRP and Stem Cell Institute. I'm reaching out to those who suffer from spine and joint pain. We use treatment methods that require no surgery, no scalpel, no drugs.
Running, walking, or whatever your desires are, Dr. Grossinger is where you need to come.
You can benefit from the same PRP and stem cell treatment as Wilbert Montgomery. Call us now at 610-222-5675.
We're here to show you a better way to spend your state income taxes and get the money to where it's needed to most to the thousands of qualified kids.
What we like about Blocks is they really know where the need is.
This program ensures that their dollars come 100% into these kids for their tuition assistance.
If you are able, Blocks makes the EITC piece go very quickly and very smoothly.
Turn your PA state tax liability into need-based scholarships and receive a 90% tax credit.
Underdog Fantasy has a way for you to play alongside your favorite football team all season long with their fantasy pick'em game. You pick between 2 to 5 players, select whether they'll go higher or lower on one of their stats, then do what you usually do on a Sunday, watch the games. You can win up to 20 times your money in a single game by going 5 for 5. It's a fantasy game, and the Sports Betting Show wants you to get involved. Go to UnderdogFantasy.com. When you sign up, use the promo code WIN, and Underdog will double your first deposit up to $100. That's UnderdogFantasy.com. Use the promo code WIN.
EAGLES, Eagles.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back into the Legal Hands to the Face show. Appreciate everybody being here tonight. We're going to take you up to the 8 o'clock hour so you can get ready for Monday Night Football. I see some people checking in the chat a little bit late. No worries. Jason A-Team was doing some chores. Got to do your chores, brother. Got to do your chores. Nathan Hoffman in the house. Good to see you. But if you're here, let me know you're here by engaging in that chat. Hit that like button for me. Hit that share button. And make sure you're subscribed to not only JAKIB Sports, but to my YouTube channel as well. So we just spent the first segment comparing the offense from last year through 9 games to the offense this year through 9 games. But it's the defense that really surprised me looking at some of these stats. Nathan Hoffman saying, I am jacked for an attorney. Appreciate it, dude. Appreciate it. Used to be a lot bigger, my man. When I played college ball, I was about 45 pounds heavier, I think. That's why I played tight end, but got to slim down, man. Suits don't fit, you know? What's up, Eric R? Good to see you. Thanks for checking in. But we looked at the offense comparing that. Let's compare the defense because some of these numbers really blew me away when looking at the comparisons because I think we would all agree. You look at this defense this year, and that's been a big concern on this team. You look at this defense and you think, man, are they good enough to win a Super Bowl? Is this passing defense going to be good enough going up against these better teams? And remember, last year's defense, whether you like Jonathan Gannon or not, set a record with 70 sacks, finished the year the number one passing defense in the entire NFL. So let's take a look at the numbers through 9 games. And this is going to blow you away, I'm telling you. Last year through 9 games, Eagles defense gave up an average of 18.5 points. So far this year, 21.7. Not horrible. Obviously more points, but not horrible. You can win a lot of games in this league if you could hold the opposing offenses to under 22 points. But that's not what I found surprising. These are the parts that I found surprising. Total yards per game last year. Through the first 9 games, the defense gave up an average of 302 yards per game. So far this year through 9 games, only 323. Not much different, guys. Not much different at all. Now, they're giving it up a little bit differently. Last year, their rushing defense was nowhere near as good as their rushing defense is this year. Through 9 games last year, the Eagles defense gave up 124 yards on the ground through the first 9 weeks. They finished the season middle of the pack, 16th in the NFL, giving up 122 yards a game. They have cut that in half this year. They are only giving up 66 rushing yards a game. They have the best rushing defense in the NFL. And I'm not even sure if it's close. The Chicago Bears are the second closest to him at 76 yards a game. His defense completely stops the run. Now, herein lies the argument, is it the chicken or the egg? Do teams throw the ball more against the Eagles because they know they can't run it? Or do they not run it because they know they'll have more success in the air? That's the question. Because teams have basically given up running the football against this team. And like I told you, the overall total yards per game are pretty similar, 302 to 323. It's just where they're getting those yards. Last year's team, 124 rushing yards per game. This year's team, only 66, best rushing defense in the league. But last year's defense only gave up 178 yards a game in the air through the first 9 weeks. So far this year, 257 per game. Bottom of the NFL. Number 29 in the league. And you look at that number, that gets you concerned. But let me give you a little positive here. Let's get a little bit more hope. Because if you look at the yards per attempt, it's not as bad as the overall numbers look. Yeah, the Eagles are 29th in the NFL, giving up 257 a game in the air. But yards per attempt, they're only giving up 6.9, which is 13th in the league. It's because teams are throwing the ball so much against them. They've given up on the run. They know they can't run the ball against this front. They're not running it against Fletcher Cox and Milton Williams and Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter. They can't run the damn ball. So they've decided we're just going to drop back and throw it. and you look at the yards per attempt, it's not that bad. And I know Jalen Carter didn't make a lot of impact on the stat sheet against the Cowboys. You go back and watch that game, there were times he was getting triple teamed in that game. That's how much of a force Jalen Carter's become. So what do you think, guys? If you're here in the chat, the chicken and the egg argument, are teams throwing the ball so much because they know they can't run it? Or are they not running it because they know they'll have success passing it? Which one is it? Now, this secondary needs to be better. I'm not absolving this secondary from anything. They need to be better. James Bradbury has struggled this season for an all-pro corner. Reed Blankenship has been in and out of the lineup. He's been okay at times. He's had some plays I'm sure he would want back. Kevin Byard hasn't been great or impressive in the 2 games he's been here, but he just got here. And Darius Slay, at times, has not looked like the Slay of old. So let's hope this bye week gets this secondary back in order as well. And a big piece that hopefully is coming back is going to be this Bradley Roby. And I know he just got here. And he was a free agent for a reason, but he looked good in that game against the LA Rams. And we need him to be good because that slot corner position has been an issue. You saw what CeeDee Lamb was able to do against our slot corners. And I see you guys checking in the chat. I appreciate it. Sorry, got a little tickle in my throat. Jason A-Team, they can't run it. That's why they throw it. But it's a little bit of both. Thunderbird, secondary has been atrocious. Eric R., I think it's because they know they'll have better success in the air. And I think you're probably right, guys. It probably is a combination. But I'll tell you what, it doesn't hurt to have that dominant of a rushing defense. Because when you can stop the run the way this Eagles team can stop the run, you can win a lot of games in this league. You can. Secondary needs to be better. They need to fix the problems on the back end. And I see Mark DiStefano in the chat saying he saw today they tried to make a trade for Patrick Surtain. So that story was interesting if you read it. Eagles called the Broncos about Surtain, as they should. Kid's an absolute stud, still on a rookie deal. But so did the 49ers, and apparently both teams were calling the Broncos to make sure the other team didn't get him. Eagles didn't want the Niners to get Surtain. Niners didn't want the Eagles to get Surtain. But the price was just a little bit too high for either team. Jason A-Team says, Slay saying he thought he played amazing was a joke. But I do have confidence that this secondary is going to get it right. And I think when you look at all the new pieces and all of the changes, I'm giving them a little bit of slack. And let's hope coming out of the bye that they fix things. But I told you were going to be surprised by some of these numbers. None more than this stat. Last year's Eagles defense set a record with 70 sacks. Would you be surprised to hear that through the first 9 games in both seasons, this Eagles defense actually has more sacks this year through 9 games than they had last year through 9 games? I had to double check that stat 3 times. I actually told my producer, Xander, he said, "Are you sure?" I checked it 3 times. Last year through 9 games, the Philadelphia Eagles only had 29 sacks. This year through 9 games, 30. And the crazy thing is, mixed in those first 9 games was the one against Washington, where I think they had 9 sacks on Carson Wentz. So don't sleep on this Eagles front. I know at the beginning of the year, a lot of people were saying, hey, they're not getting as many sacks as they did last year. Well, numbers don't lie. They have more sacks this season through 9 games than they did last year, and they lead the league before this week's numbers. They led the league in quarterback pressures to start the year. How many people are shocked to hear that this Eagles defense has more sacks through 9 games than last year's. But that's the one area we need this team to improve. I see you talking about it in the chat. Secondary needs to be better. There's no doubt about it. No doubt about it. Secondary will get there. The other area that is different with this Eagles defense, we talked about turnovers on offense and that they had 7 turnovers through 9 games last year, 13 through 9 games this year. It's been the opposite for the defense with takeaways. They had 20 takeaways last year in the first 9 games. They only have 11 so far this season. So through 9 games last year, this team had a turnover differential of plus 13. And so far this season, they're a -2. It really is amazing that they're sitting here at 8-1 with a -2 turnover differential. Not going to win a lot of games in this league, turning the ball over that much, especially when you're not getting takeaways on the defensive side of the ball. So, those are areas that they need to improve on. Definitely areas that they need to improve on. But, guys, before we switch our focus to the Kansas City Chiefs, just want to take a quick look around the NFL from Week 10 with a special look at those 4 NFC teams that are vying for the top spot with the Eagles. But something I talked about on the Philly Sports Power Hour today, and I'm curious if you guys are here, your opinion on it, is let's talk about what happened in Germany. I don't know if you guys caught that early morning game between the Indianapolis Colts and the New England Patriots. But before the game, Robert Kraft was interviewed. Teams 2-7, basically talking about how it's unacceptable. Well, the New England Patriots get beat by Gardner Minshew, Shane Steichen, former offensive coordinator for the Eagles, first year as a head coach. They beat the New England Patriots 10-6, dropping the Patriots to 2-8. And I talked about it on the Sports Power Hour today, and I want your guys' opinion. You now have to start questioning if Bill Belichick lasts the entire season in New England, because it is ugly in New England. And you look at what Belichick has done in the last 2 seasons. He's 10-17 dating back to last year. 10-17. And he hasn't done anything without Tom Brady as his quarterback. And I asked the chat on the Philly Sports Power Hour today, as you look back at the great Bill Belichick's career, how much of his success do we have to attribute to Tom Brady now? Because you saw Tom Brady have success without Bill Belichick. Belichick hasn't done anything without Tom Brady. And does he last the rest of the season? Because I think it is a foregone conclusion that Belichick is done in New England. But did he earn the right to finish out the season? And I said it today on the Philly Sports Power Hour. If I'm Robert Kraft, I'm pulling Belichick aside and saying, hey, listen, man, you're going to resign. You're going to step away on your terms. You're going to tell the public that, you know what, you've had enough and you're going to go off into the sunset. And if not, you're going to get fired. But I do think that Belichick has earned the right to finish the season with everything he's done in New England. But any other coach putting a performance on the field like what the Patriots have done the last 2 seasons, they'd be done. They'd be done. And I see Eric R. saying, let's hope that Belichick doesn't get scooped up by the Washington Commanders. I said it today. I mean, I know he's got a big ego, but Belichick's 71 years old. Does he really have the drive to want to go to another team and try to build another franchise up? I don't know, man. If I'm Belichick, I'm riding off into the sunset. But hey, who knows? He does got a big ego. But I said it today, too. Look, I'm saying that a lot of his success should be attributed to Tom Brady. But there is no coach in the NFL. I don't care how good of a coach you are. There is no coach that can have sustained success with a bad quarterback. Now, there are some really good quarterbacks that can overcome bad coaching. But there's no coach who can overcome bad quarterback play. Now, a lot of times they go hand in hand. A good coach can make a quarterback better, but there's some bad quarterbacks in this league, and good coaching can only go so far. Especially when you got guys on the field like Mac Jones, who just does not look very, very good. But we will see. Nathan Hoffman saying Belichick should retire in Germany. But I don't know. I think he's got to be done. But looking around again in that AFC, one guy we need to talk about, rookie sensation C.J. Stroud, man. This rookie is the real deal. Leads a comeback win over Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals. Threw for 356, a touchdown, another one on the ground. But it's what he did after adversity. And we've talked about that with Jalen Hurts. Stroud didn't have his best game. Turned the ball over 3 times, I think. But came back, leads them on that game-winning drive. Houston's 5-4. Best record they've had since 2000, I think. No, 2000 in 4 years, excuse me. In 4 years. But good for them, man. Good for C.J. Stroud. But I want to take a look at these other teams in the NFC before we preview the Chiefs game, which we'll do in the next segment. We all know Eagles' goal, be the number 1 seed in the NFC. Be the number 1 seed, get that first round bye. And there's only one team that gets the damn bye. You know, they changed that rule. They changed that rule. So we got 4 teams that are basically vying for that top spot with the Eagles. The San Francisco 49ers, the Seattle Seahawks, the Detroit Lions, and still them Dallas Cowboys. And I love all the Cowboys fans, man, coming out of the woodwork now, saying their team is back because they dominated a ridiculously bad Giants team with an undrafted third-string quarterback, Tommy DeVito. Now everybody's saying the Cowboys are back. Come talk to us when you beat a good team. Come talk to us when Dak shows up in a big moment. But everybody talking about the Cowboys are back. But these are 4 teams that are going to push this Philadelphia Eagles team for that number 1 seed. And I think it's important. I think it's really important, obviously, for the Philadelphia Eagles to get that number 1 seed, get that bye, and make the NFC come through Philadelphia. But you look at these 4 teams, which one of these 4 squads in the NFC has the best chance to catch the Philadelphia Eagles and win that number 1 seed? Well, let's take a look at some of them. San Francisco 49ers, big bounce back win for them. I was really hopeful that Dougie P was going to do us a favor and that the Jacksonville Jaguars were going to whoop the Niners in Jacksonville in that game. It wasn't even close. That game wasn't even close. I think the final score was, 34-3? 34-3, the Niners beat the Jags. And they look good doing it. Trent Williams is back at left tackle. Deebo Samuel was back. And I got to give Brock Purdy credit, man. I said we're going to learn a lot about Brock Purdy. He finally faced some adversity, losing 3 straight, not playing that great in some of those games. He had a big game against the Jags. Almost threw for 300 yards, 3 touchdowns. Niners are good. Niners got a good team. We knew that. Transistor Zen says Jags laid a massive egg. I will agree. As good as the Niners looked, the Jags may have looked even worse. They did not look good in that game. But you got the Niners are sitting there at 6-3. That's a good thing for the Eagles. They are 2 games up on the Niners. And we get the luxury of being able to play the Niners. You beat the Niners, it's going to go a long way to knocking them out of potentially the number 1 seed. You can say the same thing for the Seattle Seahawks. Seattle Seahawks are 6-3. Had a big win over the Washington Commanders on a last-second field goal. But the Eagles are going to get a chance to play them too. Could go a long way if they win that game in knocking them out of that top seed race. Dallas Cowboys, 6-3. 2 games behind the Eagles. 2.5 because the Eagles beat them already. And the Eagles will get another shot at the Cowboys as well. But the team that has me a little bit concerned, and it's crazy, because you talk about the Detroit Lions and you think about all those years of the Lions not being very good. This is a good Lions team. A really good Lions team. I think the Eagles are better. I think the Eagles would beat them in a head-to-head matchup. But the Eagles aren't going to get that chance in the regular season. And the Lions have a really easy schedule the rest of the year. And they're only a game back of your Eagles, man. That's what makes me concerned about the Lions. Not that I think they're a better team than the Philadelphia Eagles. I think the Eagles would beat them in a head-to-head matchup, mainly because the Lions like to run the football. And we talked about earlier how damn good this Philadelphia Eagles rushing defense is. But the Eagles don't play them. And you look at the Lions' remaining schedule. They get to play the Chicago Bears twice. Bears stink. They get to play the Green Bay Packers at home. Green Bay has not looked good. They're going to play the New Orleans Saints. Yeah, it's in New Orleans, but the Lions will probably be favored in that game. And they also get to play the Denver Broncos at home in Detroit. The Lions are probably going to be favored in their next 4 games. Home against Chicago, home against Green Bay, at New Orleans, at Chicago, home against Denver. That's 5 games they'll probably be favored. Now, these are the ones that could be tough for the Lions. They go to Minnesota, to Dallas, and then they come home to play Minnesota. The Vikings game looked like it was going to be an easy game a couple of weeks ago when Kirk Cousins went down. But that Josh Dobbs kid, man, looks like he could be the real deal. If you follow me, you know I've been high on Josh Dobbs. I've liked Josh Dobbs. Last year, this kid just can't catch a break. He hasn't been able to be with a team to start a season and give it a chance. It was with Tennessee, a week before he gets the starting job in that playoff game. Then he's in Arizona. He gets told he's not getting traded. Then he goes to Minnesota, thinks he's going to have a week to get acclimated to that team. Their quarterback goes down. He's got to start or has to go into the game, leads them to victory. Josh Dobbs and the Minnesota Vikings can do us some favors by beating this Detroit Lions team. But even still, I look at the Lions' schedule. 13-4, maybe. Kind of worst case scenario when you look at this schedule for the Lions is 13-4. Well, depending on who the Eagles lose to, 13-4 may not get you the top seed. It may not get that top seed depending on the tiebreakers with the NFC. So when I look at the Philadelphia Eagles' remaining schedule, I think we got to go 14-3 to guarantee a 1 seed. Because I don't think the Lions only lose 1 the rest of the way. As good as they are, as easy as the schedule is, I think they're going to lose at least 2 games. So if the Eagles go 14-3, that means they only lose 2 more. And if you look at those last 3 games of the season, 2 against the Giants, 1 against Arizona, assuming they win those games. I know it's only on paper. Well, now you got 11 wins. That would mean over the next 5 games during this tougher stretch, Kansas City, Buffalo, San Francisco, Dallas, Seattle, Eagles got to go 3-2. I told you before in the first segment, I think they could go 5-0. I'm not ruling against this team to do anything with how good they've played. But if they go 3-2 and then take care of business at the end of the season, Eagles should go 14-3 and be the number 1 seed. Not sure if 13-4 gets it done with these other teams climbing behind them. The Niners, the Seahawks, the Cowboys, but mostly the Detroit Lions sitting at 7-2. But what do you guys think? And I see Nathan Hoffman saying, but who are the 2 losses? Is Hurts starting those last 3? And I agree, man. I'm not picking the Eagles to lose to any of these teams. Now, is it realistic to think they're going to go 5-0 against these 5 teams? No, it's a tough stretch. They got back-to-back road games, Dallas and Seattle. They're in Kansas City on Monday night. And we're going to talk about that when we get back from the break because I want to start to preview that game coming out of the bye. But, guys, appreciate you all being here. We're going to take one more break. When we come back, we're going to switch gears. We're going to preview the Kansas City Chiefs game. Want to get some updated odds on end-of-the-season NFL awards. And I got a little Eagles trivia for you, so stay tuned. We'll be right back.
There is a reason why the Garden Medical Spa, with 4 locations in New Jersey, has arguably the best customer reviews in America for a boutique medical spa. At the Garden Medical Spa, there is no fluff, just results. For the best in Botox, chemical peels, dermal fillers, hydrofacials, laser hair removal, and so much more, please visit thegardenmedspa.com. Book an appointment now in Voorhees, Sewell, Collingswood, or Northfield. Thegardenmedspa.com. No fluff, just results.
If you own a company and you're not producing a podcast, you're missing out. The public consumes messaging when they're ready. Join the professional podcast network of companies and let JAKIB Media Partners put you in the podcast arena. Come to our professional studio or we'll come to your place of business and professionally produce your company podcast. Call JAKIB Media right now at 267-261-3428. 267-261-3428.
My name is Dr. Bruce Grossinger, and I'm the medical director of Philadelphia PRP and Stem Cell Institute. I'm reaching out to those who suffer from spine and joint pain. We use treatment methods that require no surgery, no scalpel, no drugs.
Running, walking, or whatever your desires are, Dr. Grossinger is where you need to come.
You can benefit from the same PRP and stem cell treatment as Wilbert Montgomery. Call us now at 610-222-5675.
We're here to show you a better way to spend your state income taxes and get the money to where it's needed to most to the thousands of qualified kids.
What we like about Blocks is they really know where the need is.
This program ensures that their dollars come 100% into these kids for their tuition assistance.
If you are able, Blocks makes the EITC piece go very quickly and very smoothly.
Turn your PA state tax liability into need-based scholarships and receive a 90% tax credit.
Underdog Fantasy has a way for you to play alongside your favorite football team all season long with their fantasy pick'em game. You pick between 2 to 5 players, select whether they'll go higher or lower on one of their stats, then do what you usually do on a Sunday, watch the games. You can win up to 20 times your money in a single game by going 5 for 5. It's a fantasy game, and the Sports Betting Show wants you to get involved. Go to UnderdogFantasy.com. When you sign up, use the promo code WIN, and Underdog will double your first deposit up to $100. That's UnderdogFantasy.com. Use the promo code WIN.
EAGLES, Eagles.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back into the Legal Hands to the Face show with Bill Colarulo. I appreciate you all being here tonight, talking a little Philadelphia Eagles with me for 90 minutes. Really do appreciate it. We're going to go all the way up to the 8 o'clock hour. And like I've said before, guys, if you're not already following Legal Hands to the Face on all your social media platforms. Head on over, give us a like, give us a follow. If you're not subscribed to my YouTube channel, make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you're also subscribed to JAKIB Sports, because not only we do this show every Monday, I do a daily show, the Philly Sports Power Hour, every day, Monday through Friday at 10 o'clock. Tomorrow we'll be joined by Eagles insider Dave Spadaro, like we're joined every Tuesday. Talk to him a little bit about this big matchup coming up. So make sure you're subscribed. I see you, Barbara Carroll, in the chat. Thanks for checking in. Oh, boy, and we got Texas Boy in the house, our Cowboys fan in the chat. Big win for the Cowboys against another bad team there, Texas Boy. Big win. You guys are the Penn State of the National Football League. Can beat up on the bad teams, but just always find ways to lose against the good ones. But we got a bigger matchup this week. Super Bowl 57 rematch. Maybe a Super Bowl 58 preview. But I'm fired up for this game. The only thing that's bothering me is it keeps bringing me back to how sad I was after that Super Bowl 57 loss, man. Eagles should have won that game. Eagles lose Super Bowl 57, 38-35, but they were up 24-14. And really, Jalen Hurts played the game of his life. Threw for over 300 yards in that game, a touchdown in the air, 70 yards on the ground, 3 touchdowns on the ground. But the Chiefs win that game. But hey, make no mistake about it, this is a different Kansas City team than what the Philadelphia Eagles played last year in that Super Bowl. This Kansas City Chiefs team isn't winning games just with their offense. They're winning a lot of games on the defensive side of the football. Their defense is pretty damn good this year, guys. And you look in the first hour of the show, we compared the Eagles through 9 games on both offense and defense. You look at the Chiefs on both offense and defense from last year to this year. And pretty much every offensive category, they've gotten worse. And every defensive category, they've gotten better. This is a different Chiefs team. They lost some players. Left tackle Orlando Brown went to the Bengals. They released defensive end Frank Clark. 2 wide receivers are gone, McCole Hardman. TikTok boy Juju Smith-Schuster's gone. No issues there for the Eagles to worry about. Andrew Wiley's in Washington. They added some players. Left tackle Donovan Smith. Right tackle Jawan Taylor. Linebacker Drew Tranquill. But you look at the stats for this team. Every offensive category is worse and every defensive category is better. What's up, Steve Ike? Thanks for checking in, brother. But just look at this. Last year, they had the number 1 offense in the league, averaging over 414 yards a game. They're still pretty good, but they're down to 369. They had the number 1 offense in the league for points per game. They were 29.2 last year. They're down to 23. Passing yards was close to 300 last year. It's down to 265. Rushing yards, 116, down to 104. Yards per carry, 4.7, down to 4.1. But the biggest one for me is red zone. Last year, they were number 2 in the NFL, 69% red zone efficiency. They're down to 54%. And a hell of a lot more turnovers this year. They had 23 all last season. They already have 17, on pace for over 30 turnovers this year. But the one thing this team still does very well, and a lot of that is because of how shifty Patrick Mahomes is in the pocket, but they don't give up a lot of sacks. And we talked about it leading up to Super Bowl 57, that a big matchup was going to be the Eagles' defensive line's ability to generate pressure and get sacks on Patrick Mahomes. They couldn't do it in Super Bowl 57. They better be able to do it on Monday night. You have to put pressure on Patrick Mahomes. But you look at this offense, That's not why they're winning so many games. That's not why the Chiefs are 7-2 right now. It's because of this defense. And I told you they are better in almost every single category on defense, except for rushing yards. Will the Eagles run the ball? Will the Eagles run the ball on Monday night? It's a question we have every single week. But against this team, you probably should. And not because of the defensive numbers only, because it's probably a good idea to keep Patrick Mahomes on the sidelines as much as you possibly can. But let's take a look at this Chiefs defense, because I told you they are better in almost every category. They gave up 328 yards per game last year, only giving up 288. They gave up close to 22 points per game. They're only giving up 16 points a game this year on defense. Think about that. You got Patrick Mahomes on the offensive side of the ball, and your defense is only giving up 16 points a game. You're going to win a lot of damn games in this league. They're only giving up 176 passing yards a game. Last year, they gave up 221. It'll be interesting to see because this Philadelphia Eagles passing offense has been very good this season. Very good. Top 10 in the league. Getting better every week. Going up against a really good pass defense in the Kansas City Chiefs. And the Chiefs, it's not only their pass defense, they get after the quarterback. They did last year. Last year, Eagles had 70 sacks, finished number 1 in the NFL. Kansas City finished number 2, had 55. Well, so far, through 9 games, the Kansas City Chiefs have 31 sacks. They're on pace for 60 sacks this season, even more than they had last year. They got a good pass defense, and they get after the quarterback. That may be what decides this game on Monday night. Which defensive line can cause the most pressure? The Eagles or the Chiefs? And interestingly, as good as this defense has been, and I told you they improved yards per game, passing yards per game, sacks, they got worse in the red zone. Excuse me. They got a lot better in the red zone. They were horrible last year in the red zone, giving up 67% of the time. They were 31st in the league. They're down to 54%. But like I said, the one area that they've gotten worse is running. They're giving up 4.5 yards per carry. To put that into perspective, your Philadelphia Eagles defense, that's only given up 66 yards a game, only gives up 3.7 yards per carry. That's almost a yard difference. That's a lot in the NFL. But will Brian Johnson and Nick Sirianni commit to the run on Monday night against the Kansas City Chiefs? Look, you're going to have to throw the ball. We know that. This is the modern NFL. You have to throw the football. But you also got to be able to run it effectively, especially against a team like Kansas City. Keep Patrick Mahomes on the sideline as much as possible. But this is not going to be an easy matchup. It is not going to be an easy matchup. You look at the Kansas City offense, and we know there's a player on that offense that's maybe the best to ever do it at his position. Just so happens his brother's on the Eagles. And we're talking about Travis Kelce. And Wine Niners Wine in the chat earlier said, who's going to guard Travis Kelce? And I don't think you should be talking about one person. I'd have 2 people on Travis Kelce on every single play. There should be a guy jamming him at the line of scrimmage. Do not allow Travis Kelce to get a clean release off the line of scrimmage on any play that the Chiefs run. And then there should always be somebody over the top. Exactly, Wine Niners Wine, what multiple people should be guarding Travis Kelce. There should always be multiple people on Kelce. Because, look, this team doesn't have a ton of playmakers on the offensive side of the ball. Pacheco runs very hard. We saw it in the Super Bowl. Local kid from Vineland. He runs hard. But that doesn't concern me. Our rushing defense is a lot better this year than it was in the Super Bowl. I'm not worried about the Kansas City Chiefs running the ball on our defense. At receiver, not a lot of playmakers. Sky Moore, Tony, who had that big punt return. You shut down Travis Kelce, that's going to go a long way to winning this football game. And I see Wine Niners Wine saying, but who? I can't name two guys on him that can stop Travis Kelce. You got to be all over him. I wouldn't mind having Zach Cunningham in his face on every single play, jamming him off the line of scrimmage, putting a safety, whether it's Byard or Blankenship, over the top, having Bradley Roby bracket him over the top. You cannot let Travis Kelce beat you in this football game. You can't do it. And we said that in the Super Bowl. I said leading up to the Super Bowl, let anybody else on that team beat you. Don't let it be Travis Kelce. They couldn't stop him. They couldn't stop him in that game. But we will see. We will see what they decide to do on Monday night. And one of the big storylines going into this game is how good Andy Reid is coming out of a bye. We hear it all the time, how good Andy Reid is after a bye. So I went back and looked. And Andy Reid this is his 25th regular season now as a head coach. So I went back and looked at the prior 24 regular seasons to see how good is Andy Reid coming off of a bye in the regular season. I didn't include the playoffs numbers because playoffs are a different animal. So I wanted to see how good is Andy Reid coming off of a bye in the regular season. And I hate to say it, guys, but he's pretty damn good. In 24 seasons, Andy Reid is 21-3 after a bye in the regular season. He was 13-1 in Philadelphia. And he's 8-2 in Kansas City. Crazy thing is, he started his career 13 straight in Philly. The only one he lost was his last season here. And now he's won 5 in a row dating back to 2018. Pretty damn good. Pretty damn good. But you look at this, and maybe this is an omen. Let's hope it's an omen. The last game that Andy Reid lost coming out of a regular season bye is going to be almost identical. November 19th, week 11. What week we in? Week 11. What day are they playing? November 20th. Maybe it's an omen. And it was against an NFC East team, the New York Giants, in overtime. Maybe that's an omen, guys. But it's not going to be easy. But hey, there's another head coach that's going to be on the field that actually has a better winning percentage coming out of a regular season bye. And that's Nick Sirianni. Undefeated coming off of a regular season bye. It's only been 2 games, but hey, maybe we'll be talking about Nick Sirianni in 24 years as being a guy who's phenomenal off of a bye. So Nick Sirianni's won both games coming off of a bye. Interestingly, they've never been on the road following a bye. Both games have been home games. But we will see. Look, this Eagles team, including Nick Sirianni, are going to say all the right things leading up to this game, that they don't have the Super Bowl on their mind, that this has nothing to do with what happened in Super Bowl 57. You know this game means a lot to this team. Not only is it a big game for the season itself, and getting closer to that number 1 seed in the NFC. If you're a competitor like these guys are, like Nick Sirianni is, you want to get back a little bit of revenge. You know you want to get back a little bit of revenge in the Kansas City Chiefs Stadium on Monday night in front of a national audience. I wouldn't bet against the Eagles this week. I wouldn't bet against the Eagles. And Andy Reid outcoached Nick Sirianni in the second half of the Super Bowl. I wouldn't put it past them to come out and win this damn game on Monday night against those Kansas City Chiefs. But hey, when you start hearing all that talk, because you know there's going to be a lot of talk leading up about that bye, you remember what I told you. The Omen, Week 11, coming out of a bye against an NFC East team. The last time Andy Reid lost. Maybe it'll get done again. Maybe it'll get done again. But guys, as we're starting to close the show, a couple things I wanted to just take a look at. First off, there were some reports the Eagles had Anthony Barr in for a free agent visit this week. Not sure what that means. Not sure if they'll bring him in as a depth piece. I wouldn't get too excited. Barr's 31 years old. He's played 9 years in this league, 8 of them with the Minnesota Vikings, last year with the Dallas Cowboys. Did make 4 straight Pro Bowls from 2015 to 2018. Hasn't played a full season since 2017, though. But last year in Dallas, 14 regular season games, 2 in the playoffs, started 10 games in the regular season, started 2 in the playoffs, did have 58 tackles, 2 tackles for loss and a sack in the regular season, 9 tackles and a tackle for loss. I'm getting some updates here. Wait, hold on. Did he already sign with the Vikings? Let's see. Yes, they did. Yes, they did. So we don't even need to talk about Anthony Barr. He's going back to Minnesota. And honestly, like I said, guys, I wouldn't get too excited anyway. I don't think he's got much left. But let's hope he can help the Vikings beat the Detroit Lions. So that's good. Getting updates. Appreciate that. So let's take a quick look, guys, before we go to our Eagles trivia, at some of the end-of-the-season awards and where Philadelphia Eagles stand and if they have a shot to win some of these. So I gave you the MVP odds to start the season, to start the show. Jalen Hurts tied for the second best odds to win the MVP. Number 1 is Patrick Mahomes at plus 300. And number 2 is Lamar and Jalen at plus 350. What do you think happens to those odds if the Philadelphia Eagles win on Monday night? So I know Jalen says all the right things. I know his focus isn't on winning an MVP. This isn't Joel Embiid. He wants a Super Bowl. But I'm sure it wouldn't make him upset to beat Patrick Mahomes and get a little revenge on that Super Bowl game. So you got Jalen Hurts, a real shot at winning the MVP. Offensive Player of the Year surprised me because A.J. Brown is having one of the best years we've ever seen from a wide receiver. And he is a distant third in the odds to win Offensive Player of the Year. Tyreek Hill, I get it, having a great season. He's plus 125. But they got Christian McCaffrey at plus 125. And they got A.J. Brown at plus 550. That surprises me. Hey, if you guys are gamblers, may not be a bad little bet to throw some money on A.J. Brown, because if he throws in a couple more games like we saw in the beginning of the season, there's a shot he could win that thing. What really bothered me is Defensive Player of the Year. We're starting to see Hassan Reddick coming back to the Reddick he was last season, being a closer. You've seen the stats circulating on Twitter about what he does at the end of games. He's got the 14th best odds in the NFL to win Defensive Player of the Year at plus 7,500. No respect for Hassan Reddick. Again, if you're a bettor, may not be a bad idea to throw a little money on Hassan Reddick to win Defensive Player of the Year. I told you the numbers last year. Through the first 9 games, they only had 29 sacks. They turned it on putting on 41 sacks the last half of that season. So we will see. But Nathan Hoffman, I agree with you. Myles Garrett is an absolute beast, man. Absolute beast. But again, all these guys got to stay healthy. Anything could happen. Offensive Rookie of the Year is a no-brainer. C.J. Stroud is a minus 1,600. Through 9 games, he's 5-4, 16 touchdowns, only 2 interceptions. And then sitting there as the favorite to win Defensive Rookie of the Year, Jalen Carter at minus 150. Closest player to him is Devin Witherspoon at plus 150, who's having a really good season in Seattle at corner. And then there's another one that bothers me. Coach of the Year, Sirianni, getting no love or respect, has the 6th best odds at plus 1,600. They're the best team in the league, man. 8-1, best record. I get it. Dan Campbell's the favorite. His team's playing well. DeMeco Ryans second favorite. His team's playing well. But you got Nick Sirianni at 6th at a plus 1,600? I don't know. Sirianni doesn't get enough credit, I don't think. I think he's a good coach. I think you're going to see how good of a coach he is on Monday night. If you guys follow me on the Philly Sports Power Hour, I'll give you my prediction on Friday. I also post my prediction video every weekend before the game. So make sure you're following. I'll give you my predictions. But let me end the show like we do every single week with a little Eagles trivia. No cheating in the chat. No cheating. We'll see who gets this one. So this is not only a Philadelphia Eagles record, it is also an NFL record. So who holds the Philadelphia Eagles record for the most 50-plus yard touchdowns in a season? And again, it's also an NFL record. This one's not that hard if you think about it. Who holds the record for the most 50-plus yard touchdowns in one season? Give you guys a second in the chat. And like I said, it's also an NFL record. It is tied with 2 other players. And there it is. Mark DiStefano right away. D-Jax. Deshaun Jackson has the most 50-plus yards touchdowns in a season. Anybody know how many he had and what year? You know what season it was in and how many 50-plus yard touchdowns he had that year? It's pretty remarkable. So I see John Jarrell coming in. We need to sign JPP. Maybe. Yeah, Mark DiStefano, Chip Kelly is a prick. That was one of the craziest moves I have ever seen, was just releasing Deshaun Jackson. Not even trading Deshaun Jackson, just releasing Deshaun Jackson. One of the best wide receivers this team has ever had. One of the best deep threats in NFL history. Yeah, let's just release him. Mark DiStefano, I think, is cheating. Comes out with another one saying 8. That is also correct. In 2009, Deshaun Jackson had 8 touchdowns of 50 yards or more, which was a Philadelphia Eagles record. It is also an NFL record. Little bonus points here, Mark DiStefano. Can you name the other 2 players in NFL history who have also had a season with more than 8 50-plus yard touchdowns? You get this one, I'll be very, very surprised. I'll be very, very surprised. And I see Wine Niners Wine saying LaShawn McCoy was a worse move by Chip. Chip destroyed this team. But I'll tell you this. But for Chip Kelly completely destroying that football team, do the Eagles win Super Bowl 52? Because it was that year where they completely blew up this team that then forced Howie Roseman to come back out of exile and turn this team around in 2 years and win us a Super Bowl. And we're running out of time, so I'm going to give you the answer. It's not Jerry Rice. It's not Tyreek Hill. It's not Steve Largent. It is Devin Hester for the Chicago Bears in 2007. And then I don't think anybody was getting this one. Elroy Crazy Legs Hirsch for the Rams in 1951. How about that name? Elroy Crazy Legs Hirsch. But, guys, I appreciate you all taking these 90 minutes to spend with me talking Eagles. Hit that like button. hit that subscribe button. Hopefully, I'll see you guys on the Philly Sports Power Hour tomorrow at 10 a.m. We got Dave Spadaro from the Eagles joining us. Hit that like, hit that subscribe. Follow me on all social media platforms. And as always, guys, go Birds.
Go for the pulls and the pools. Go for the oohs and the ahs. Go for the bubbles and the bubbly. Go for the story and the stories. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.